On this episode of the podcast, I have with me Mo Villagran. She is the Associate Director of Insights, Analytics, and Data at Cambrex, also an author of a book called Data Insights Delivered. Going to be talking about stakeholder expectation management and also expected delivery value. Those are two big things, whether you're working in data or pretty much any other area of technology or more business. And super excited to have you on, Mo, to talk about this.
I'm very excited to be here too.
Absolutely. All right. Before we dive in, two things if you could do. Tell us a little bit about your book and also what does Cambrex do just in terms of what the industry is so everyone is aware.
Right. So my current job is at Cambrex is a global CDMO company, meaning we're a pharmaceutical contractor. We help other companies, pharmaceutical companies, to build any type of APIs that they need in a nutshell. And this book really was born out of my experience with different types of stakeholders over the past decade. I was working in law enforcement with the FBI. And I was also an actuary for several years, working for the government's insurance plans and commercial plans. And out of these, I realized that these seven simple steps really help people to focus on what's really important in data analytics.
Awesome. All right. Well, I love it. I love it when we have steps and we have process because I think this is an area that probably obviously we're talking in the context of data and that's great. I do think this comes up in a lot of different areas. When we're talking about stakeholder management, we're talking about expected delivery. Those are to me, while they're two separate things, they really go hand before we dive in, just so that we have, all our parts here correct. Tell us what stakeholder expectation management means to you, and then when we're talking about expected delivery value as well.
I think in a simple word, it's really just customer service. Like this is something that has been lacking in our field, that we're so focused on tech, we forget about the people that we're actually serving. Because what do you do? What do you do? And the data analytics. Because you want to get insights, want to make money, want to help the company, and sometimes you want to help the people to run things more smoothly, right? But they were just so caught up in like technology, one after another. Every year, there's new things, new tools, rebranding, software companies, tech tool companies, and that just kind of lost touch in what's really important: customer service. You can have the most skeleton data team and it will still deliver value, then your high tech cloud architecture engineering, that kind of team. Because in the end of the day, at the end of the day, you're trying to solve a business problem.
And then just to kind of touch on that and kind of focus on that before we get into the expected delivery, you brought up a great point, and I don't want to forget. When you talk about remembering to focus on that business outcome, technology has gotten more complicated. You said you could do it with a bare bones skeleton team. That is absolutely true. Why are we thinking technology more and more versus business outcome first? And not everyone, right? It's a general statement, but it feels like a lot of times with because technology has gotten more complicated, our minds jump from business solution to technical solution so fast that we might be missing something.
I think there's two layers. There are two layers. The first layer is probably more emotional. It's easy to say a tool can solve your problem than to say you have to go back to fix all the messy relationships or the business processes that don't work. So that's one layer. The second layer is I think it's just the newness of the tool. AI is very cool, but does it work for you? Yes, maybe not. And it's cool. I use AI in my personal life and it's a cool tool if you use it right and have the right use cases.
When we talk about expected delivery value, I think we've all seen the comic strip of the requirements of somebody describing a chair and how it gets end up getting delivered, designed, and shipped. When we talk about expected delivery value, though, who's the judge of value? And then maybe a little before, I guess I didn't have you define what that is, but maybe define that. And then also, who judges that delivered value?
Most likely is the stakeholders. And I want to touch on a pretty common thing. I mean, every field is a little different. They like to talk about KPIs, what they're trying to measure against. In my opinion, I think it's most likely going to be very qualitative because throughout this process, if you have been engaging with your stakeholders in the right way, which we will talk about it later, right? It's that they know you're involved. They know you want to solve their problems, regardless whether you have budget concerns, you have short staff issues. If you just understand what they need and come up with something that actually help even just a little bit, I think that's value given because there are only so much resources and time that you can give to a group, right? In a company. And now times are kind of chaotic. And I understand that people don't think that building a 20 people analyst team is something people want to do anymore. Like it's kind of out of the question with the budget and certain things. So I think the focus is that, yeah, who defines the value? In the end of the day, at the end of the day is the stakeholders, the end users, whoever that's involved. But that's not to say that it's unfair. Like it's like, oh, it's kind of one sided. So I'm the one that's implementing it. I don't have a say to it. No, you actually do have a say by engaging them throughout the whole process. I like to call us the demo in real time. Like every time that you have a progress, you actually show them in real time. So they see exactly what you actually have done so far. It's a testimony to them that you have been delivering value and it's really what they need. Not like that sketch, the meme. They ask you to build a horse, but you give them a dog because by in the middle of the process, you kind of know that you're delivering something towards a dog or towards a horse, right? So that's why delivering and showing them in real time is really, really important. Yeah, that's I think that's how it can be done.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, obviously the stakeholder, I mean, they're aware of the value. I guess when it comes to that translation part, right? Expectation management implies trying to have the stakeholder understand some of what the gap is between what they might be asking for and what you can deliver. Obviously, when they first start out on hoping for requirements, they have expected delivery value, right? They imagine. But as we go through that expectation management, it seems that their expected delivery value might change because all of a sudden they're having to reframe what their requirement in the context was. I guess when you're looking at the expectation management, again, it could be from the viewpoint of the practitioner who's actually going to develop the solution. When you are working on that stakeholder management piece, are you actually impacting what could be that delivery value? Is that potential as you're pushing back and negotiating and dealing with those requirements?
Very, very, very much so. And I actually want people in the data analytics field to really negotiate. And negotiate sounds a little negative. It's really adjust their expectations because they look at you. You need to position yourself as a trusted advisor, not an order taker. If they come to you with a unreasonable request, not no fault of their own because they don't know what can be done, right? It's like your child asks you for something, but they don't know how much it costs or if it's possible for you to buy it. You don't blame the child, but you can explain to the child or your stakeholder, like, I am competent in this field. It's basically what you're trying to say. I'm competent in this field. This is what can be done. I understand your problem. Let me give you some options. Are any of these options appealing? Do they meet your expectations? If they say no, then you can keep going. Dig deeper. Like what is bothering them? Sometimes people come, they say they really want a cloud architecture. Okay, that's great. But what do you need it for? And sometimes they'll be, oh, because other people are going into cloud, so we need to go into cloud. Maybe that's true, but again, what's because it costs, it's not like you just save money when you go to the cloud. It can still cost more than the on-premise databases. And so you want to know why. Like you really want to know. And if they can't tell you, you have to take on this therapy persona to really help them through it. The worst scenario is you became an order taker. You're like, okay, they gave me a task. They wanted me to build cloud architecture. I built it. And then in the end, they said they didn't like it. And then Now I'm not delivering value. That's terrible, right? Because you didn't really kind of actively guide them to the right solution. And they instead just kind of like, oh, they asked me to do it, so I'll just do it. So it's like a very passive attitude. And I think that should be avoided.
I guess as you're, as you're seeing things develop with technology and we're seeing more and more complicated solutions, obviously stakeholders to degree do have the business understanding of what they functionally might need. As a technologist, all right, I guess the question maybe to flip it to the technologist is when you're looking at solutions to help someone, how much of a responsibility is it to remember that you might not have to go to the most advanced technology available? You could say, hey, let's do this with the most basic one because it solves the need.
And you should default to the basic one. Unless the company is very advanced in technology, has gone through digital transformation years before, usually the simple solution will do it. And you want to start small. If you start big and you can't adjust as much as you need, sometimes people think that, oh, this is great initiative. They're gonna do it all, let's say, oh, data management, global enterprise level, big program, bought the tool, have the whole team. And so like second quarter, realize sometimes some sites are run completely different. Maybe it's not suitable to have this kind of global view of the data because the business is in a complete different nature. And then what do you do with the money you spend? And so you kind of want to start kind of investigate. It's like an investigation. You start slow, not too slow, right? And you reassess every quarter, right? And after a year, you probably know where you stand already, and then you can really go in pretty deep by then.
I guess as you kind of look at it, and you mentioned go with the simplest solution. I guess I mean it certainly makes sense. You put the solution in place. When you look at that as your, let's say, default, and you're thinking of solutions and potentially, well, these solutions might grow. We have to support them. There might be further requirements. How do you balance, picking the simplest solution versus, what happens if? I mean, do you count for the future, or it's like, hey, I delivered the value now. They can use it. Maybe it's a simpler solution. Maybe it's a faster deployed solution. And then if requirements change, we'll deal with it then. I mean, how do you kind of view that?
Depends on the group that I work with. So right now, for my current company, I take the approach of I want to deliver value now. There's certain things like my team, I want the reputation of we are delivering value. And I need that to support our future efforts. Because without that trust with the stakeholders, it's hard to do more things, more advanced, larger at scale. So at the beginning, I was very much of I need to get this out the door. It's the simple solution. I can prototype it. But right now, it's like my second year in this company. We still go for the simple solution if we can, but we start to scale up. We use AI not in the way that people are using it. We have documents that we need to digitalize. That is a legitimate use of generative AI, and we're doing it. That's one of the most advanced solutions that we can have right now. But then for other areas of our project, I am fine with just a simple Power BI, a simple automated report. We don't need anything fancy, and those are quite easy to scale up. It's a matter of pipeline. We always build pipeline with the end results in mind. Like, for example, the cloud architecture. How do you organize the block storage? Kind of not really like the most hot topic, but it's true. When you land the data in there, do you organize your container by function globally or by company size? So these are the things that we think about, and that is for future scalability. But yes, short term, I would want to deliver value as soon as possible. I have heard some teams that they've spent 6 months building a cloud architecture and no one gets anything out of it because there was no use case. There was no actual value delivered. Yes, there is value delivered, but they can't feel it. If they can't feel it, it doesn't mean anything. It's just how the world works, right? You're doing all this hard work and you never market yourself. what do you think will happen? No one will know your value, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? That's actually super fair perspective because I think a lot of times over-engineered solutions are unnecessary, right? Depending what the solution is, right? So sometimes you can, like you said, get away with something really simple. Sometimes you do need complicated. As a technologist, it is fun to work on new things. It is fun to learn new things. How do you balance that? Because I know many technologists who would love to work on the more complex thing because it's more fun, more challenging, more tools, learning. It's a continuous learn. How do you, as a technologist, resist the urge to default to complex when simple might work?
Well, my desire to learn is mostly from what I need to deliver. So when I was in consulting, at one point I was doing click-through project at the same time with a Tableau project. I just had to learn in a month, both of them. So it was very much project driven in consulting. And then after I left consulting, I mean, I only have so much time, right? There's family, there's other things, my hobbies. I try to stick to a tool that is really the staple of the field, right? That company that creates the tool has been growing steadily, and my stakeholders really need it. I wouldn't go off learning some Python library just came out. I could care less because I don't need it. That's my philosophy. I really just don't have that much time. So I can only learn things that is immediately useful to me.
That makes sense. I guess another question that just, when you're dealing with stakeholder expectation and obviously expected delivery, you mentioned showing them in real time. Obviously, there's a lot of project management methodologies that advocate that as well. Make sure you're showing constant demos. I guess when you're looking at the data space and you're looking at the length of projects, obviously there are times when you have nothing to show, or I guess it's more difficult to show because from the expectation of the end user, they might be thinking they're going to see one thing. But when you're working on, let's say, a little bit bigger project and there's a lot of plumbing, and that could, take a couple of weeks, couple of months. I mean, it depends with the size and scope. But when you're dealing with the plumbing and you're dealing with stuff that isn't as visually appealing, is there an opportunity to still show that and show the progress in terms of that phase of the development with the stakeholder?
I believe so. So let's talk about in two parts. One is the one that has visual, right? Which is the easiest part. Dashboard or a picture or anything that you automate that sends their email, like anything you can think of. Those are pretty easy. Right? You just want to be able to walk them through, have them respond to it, and then adjust accordingly. So then you're done. And you do it consistently in a regular period of time. Either 2 weeks, 1 month, weekly. You just have to be consistent. Like that is really the key. You don't have to do it every day. Just do it consistently. That will build trust. And so now that's the visual part. The second part is the non-visual part. If you're a data engineer, you're kind of in a tough spot, right? Because the stakeholders, they don't really want to see your cloud pipelines or your really fancy trigger scheduling. So here's my suggestion. I think through you, like for example, getting data from SAP into the cloud is quite a complex project because SAP has a lot of tables. I'm no expert, but the logic can be quite complex. So throughout this process, you will have questions. Let's say for your accountants, when you ask these questions, that hey, how do you define 606 revenue recognition? Where's your GL accounts mapping? Those questions is a landmark or a post to show them that you are working on something. It is that interaction that you're showing them the progress being made. And you can even show them just a little sample raw data and say, hey, is this what you're looking for? And can you look at this top 10 rows of the data? Nothing fancy, but they know in the back of their mind that so and so is populating my data in the cloud. Things are going well. And I don't think you need to do any more than that. And your manager or your project lead should be able to provide more context in terms of the time frame or other project you guys have been working on. And that person should be your voice for you if you have one. And if not, you can have it for yourself by asking regular questions because you will have questions. If you don't have questions, I've been in this field for a while. If an analyst doesn't have questions, I can assume, I know sometimes not fair, assume that this person either doesn't really understand and too lost or is not doing anything because you will have questions.
When you're looking at the final deliverable and you're trying to go back and tie in, hey, this is what the stakeholder wanted. So we went through a process. We delivered the final solution. There is obviously expected value. What's the best way to measure that? Have you seen a best practice way to make sure you can articulate, hey, this is what you wanted, this is what we delivered. How do you go about ensuring that?
Okay, I have lots of thoughts. But my main points takeaway for the people in our field, in my opinion, is that do not fall into the trap of quantitative KPIs. Don't let people define your value by how many dashboards you have popped out this year. I'm just making an example because more dashboards does that mean you are delivering value? You can deliver 100 junky dashboards if you want to, and that's doing nothing. The value that you're delivering is through the interaction. The most valuable value that it can be shown is by your stakeholders. They will be talking about it without you present, talking to your boss on how much they like this thing, has speed up their decision process for sales or marketing, or they're doing their monthly closing and now they have this dashboard to manage the payout, the customers, and the invoices. These are the things that are qualitative and is by word of mouth. I know it's kind of against the nature of quantitative thinkers in the field. I think this is what makes it really stand out. Like your leadership is not going to care if you have done a lot of data plumbing. They want to know what you did is actually going to have an impact on the company's performance. And I have said no to project or I deprioritize projects that are not directly tied to revenue, top line or bottom line, because I know that I cannot do all the projects and I can't fail on certain projects. So that's how I prioritize. And I know that if I do these essential ones that are tied to the dollars, the cash, we will have a great reputation and people will have great testimonies for our team, right? And then it keeps us going to build that trust, to make sure people understand that data analytics is a great thing to have. Because sometimes we're just gonna get lost in the technology. Man, like what should I have? Should I use Power BI or Tableau? It doesn't matter. I mean, I have a preference, but it really doesn't matter. If your company is a Microsoft staff, use Microsoft staff because it saves more money. It's more natural. People are used to it. Yeah. So back to the topic. If you want to be measured against, make sure it's a qualitative trait, something that people can vouch for you, not by yourself.
Awesome. I like that. I like that's a great point, and I appreciate your thoughts on the everything we've talked about on the podcast. I guess if someone does have a question for you and they want to reach out, what is a good way of reaching out to you, Mo?
It's always welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
All right, we'll make sure we include your LinkedIn handle in the show notes so that people can find you. Again, thanks for being on the show. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks for inviting.
Absolutely. That's it for the episode. Be back again, different guest, different topic. Then two things. One, I really do think stakeholder management is a lot of art. And the more we talk about it, the more ideas and more thoughts. I thought this episode was great. Hopefully, you gal can pick up a few pointers, maybe confirm some of the things you're already doing, share it with other people that are also knee deep in stakeholder management. So please share this episode with others that might benefit from it. If you have any questions, please reach out. Let me know. Like, subscribe, comment, leave a review for the podcast if you could. Otherwise, until next time, thank you and goodbye.